Hello, my name is Maya K. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Seeking Sister Wives Season 4, Episode 6. We pick up right where we left off with Steve's daughter Jayden being disgusted with Brenda and Steve's lifestyle of choosing polygamy. Now we got here is because last episode Steve and Brenda told the kids that they were actively searching and are interested in growing the family. And Steve's son Preston was okay with it, but Jayden on the other hand was very upset about it and basically gave Steve an ultimatum. Either polygamy or me, and Steve says he's in a sticky situation and he doesn't know what to do. Steve was also very hurt and angry and upset by that because he feels like it's the right decision, but Jada doesn't feel like that. In her eyes, it's just disgusting, gross, and she thinks the only reason why people would do something like this is because they don't love their wives and they feel the need to go out and cheat and basically expand their love horizon, if that makes sense. But my point is that Jayden just feels like people only do this when they don't have enough love for the person they're with or they want a reason to cheat, basically. Just what a lot of us think who are viewers, and she's just been the first to say it on the show. And Steve's son Preston steps in and says that I can talk about your lifestyle, talk about how I don't like it and just completely write it off, but he doesn't, and I feel like that's not comparable. I guess he was talking about the way she dresses and like the chokers and all of that, and the two things are comparable, like I said, because how you dress is not a lifestyle change that affects everyone. It only affects you. If someone dyes their hair red, your hair isn't dyed red. That doesn't affect you in any form or shape. Adding new family member to the family completely changes everything, especially when it's someone who your dad is practically going to be married to and is going to have a romantic relationship with. That's a pretty big lifestyle change. The two things aren't even really comparable in my opinion. But ultimately, they come to no real solution. Steve's very hurt by what Jayden said and is now in a difficult situation because he has to choose between expanding the family and his daughter. This shouldn't be difficult. Choose your daughter, for God's sake. I mean, you basically created her. Like, there shouldn't even be a question in mind because at the end of the day, that's your daughter. She's one of the few people who are always going to be around, because even if Brenda decides to leave and that's your wife, your kids will still be there. I mean, they won't be there if you keep treating them like a second option, but you treat your kids just relatively decent, most of the time they will be there for you. And unless you want to end up in a retirement home, I suggest Steve chooses his kid. Even if he does, like I said, this shouldn't even be like a decision that's difficult for him to make. It's very obvious what he should do. Next, move on to Sidney and Natasha. Sidney is finally in the Philippines and he's at the Airbnb to meet Ariel and to see where their relationship goes, and whether he should propose or not, which that's kind of wild to think about for me, just because isn't it a little early to be thinking about proposal? Definitely comes off just let me trap you as fast as possible before you can think of any reason why we shouldn't be together. Maybe I'm just jumping to conclusions, so I'm just gonna leave that one alone. Sidney finally meets Ariel at the Airbnb that Sidney and Ariel are gonna be staying at. When they finally meet each other, they're both very excited and very nervous, and Sidney thinks Ariel is very beautiful, and Ariel was of course very excited. And they both feel their relationship is very organic. And Ariel thinks Sidney is easy to talk to, and she thinks he's very attractive, so it looks like they're getting off on a good start. Next, move on to Danielle and Garrett, and they are finally moving out of their RV and moving to their home after 5 months. So they're moving to the house that they were building, and I believe in the clip it said the house had 7 bedrooms. So did they build the house in 5 months, or were they already building the house for like they got kicked off the Garrett's like family property or whatever it was? Or maybe I just don't know how long it takes to build a house. But anyways, and they end up talking about how things did not end up working out with Leah. Leah felt like it wasn't genuine enough and there just wasn't really anything there, and she felt like she couldn't go for her goals like she wanted to. I'm happy for Leah. I'm glad she saw the red flags and turned the other way. Because most times women will see the red flags and just ignore them for, I guess, the fun of it. I don't know. But good for Leah, because she definitely deserves someone who's gonna allow her to grow and become her best self without having to hold her back. So like I said, I'm really happy for her, and she made the right decision. But now Danielle and Garrett are back putting all their attention on Roberta. Roberta's visa has been approved a while ago and her passport, but Roberta has yet to pick it up. You have to pick up like your passport and your visa before a certain time before you can no longer pick it up. So it's a pretty important thing that Roberta isn't on a rush to get done or do. And on top of that, flights are very limited, and I think that's because of COVID. That's even bigger reason for Roberta to go ahead and just pick up her passport and her visa so she can get to America. I think Roberta is avoiding going to go pick up her stuff that she needs to get to America because she's slowly realizing that maybe this isn't really for her and that Garrett and Danielle are just full of crap, especially with the Leah situation, them going behind her back and really not listening to what she wanted. Just doing what was in the best interest of them and not her. So I think as time goes on, they will slowly break apart and ultimately Garrett and Roberta are not going to be together. Let's move on to the Davis family, and they all sit down and they're still on their weekend getaway trying to see if they get along with each other, and they decide to play a game called Never Have I Ever. Basically they're playing it how if you have done something you'll take a drink, and if you haven't done something you won't take a drink. And as they're playing the game, a question comes up. I forgot what the question was, but they end up coming to the topic of cheating. And Danielle had cheated on her ex-boyfriend because she just got bored and things just weren't working out. That's a red flag for Nick, Jennifer, and April because if things get too difficult, Danielle may run away. And they also basically just talk about jealousy. They've talked about that a lot, which I get it has a big play into the whole situation. I feel like we've been talking about it for like 3 episodes straight, or is that just me? Then they do also talk about how they're all gonna sleep in the same bed and how that would work, because I'm really interested to see how that plays out, because all 4 of them sleeping in one bed comfortably and having room to roll around and be a normal human being, I just don't think it's gonna work. But I do think we'll get to see what it looks like in one of these episodes. Let's move back around to Sidney and Natasha, and Sidney and Ariel finally met in the Philippines, and Sidney and April decide to call Tasha, tell her the good news, and just share the excitement. And Tasha's very excited when they do call her. She's happy they finally met, and she's excited to see where the relationship goes. Once they get off the phone with Tasha, they talk about the sleeping arrangement and if they're gonna sleep in the same bed tonight or not. Ariel and Sidney are both comfortable with it, so it looks like they both will sleeping in the same bed tonight. And this is a good thing for Sidney because I think he wants to have sex with Ariel. I mean, all of these men want to have sex. This is kind of what it's like about for them. Not all polygamous relationship, but the specific polygamous relationship. I think depending on what she said was going to depend on whether he has sex with her tonight. And I think he feels it's playing out in his favor at the moment. Next, we move on to the Davidson family, and it's time to go to sleep, and they're going by the sleeping arrangement that they had created earlier in the day. I may or may not have talked about it in this episode, but the sleeping arrangement is that Jennifer and Nick are going to sleep in the same bed tonight, and Danielle and April are going to sleep in a separate bed together. And in the confessional, Nick talks about how he can be hard to satisfy his sex drive in a monogamous relationship, because one person can only take so much sex, which I'm not against people having a high sex drive. I 100% get it. To the point where you feel like you need to have multiple partners at all times. And I guess Nick needs sex like every single day or more than once a day. I'm not calling him a sex addict or anything like that, because that's a pretty big title to give someone off like a 45-minute episode. But I do kind of find it weird that he needs more than 3 women to satisfy his sex drive. So I'm pretty sure they want to add more people to their relationship, even though 3 women is a lot in my opinion and way too much. But it's not my relationship, but I do wonder how many women it is gonna take for Nick to be satisfied. But anyways, they're all wearing matching pajamas, and Danielle felt very included and she was happy about it, which maybe this is just me, but through the whole episode, really the whole season, I've noticed that Nick is more affectionate towards Jennifer than he is April and Danielle. You know, Danielle is like the new person. She's the one who really can go all the attention. At least that would make sense in my head. But I saw somewhere on Reddit that someone had saw Jennifer and Nick and April like at a clinic, and Jennifer was pregnant. So maybe if that's true, I'm gonna say allegedly because just because it's on Reddit doesn't mean it's true, but if that's true, maybe she was pregnant when they were filming and he just wanted to give his attention towards her because she was pregnant. Like I said, that could not be true, and that could just be something random that someone put on Reddit, but it would kind of make a little sense. But anyways, they all end up going to bed, and like I said, the sleeping arrangement is Jennifer and Nick are together and Danielle and April are together. And Nick is being super affectionate towards Jennifer, or the other way around, whatever it is. It was kind of gross, and it was kind of like the beginning of like a porn scene, if that makes sense. And I was kind of grossed out by it, to be completely honest. I'm not grossed out people being affectionate towards their partners or anything like that, but I think that was a little much for TV. And the scene was kind of long. I felt like it was never gonna end as well, but I don't know, maybe it's just because I don't like the circumstances of the relationship, or I don't know, it was just kind of long to me and a little gross. But anyways, move on to Steve and Rhonda, and they're very hurt by what Jayden had to say about them choosing to add to their family. And Steve feels like in this difficult situation right now because she doesn't know what to do, which the decision should be to choose your daughter. That's obvious. I'm not sure why that's so difficult for Steve to grip, but okay, because your daughter is way more than trying to seek out a replacement for Brenda. And when Steve and Brenda in the confessional, Steve talks about how Jayden did not like Brenda for a certain period of time, and she felt like Brenda was the reason that her parents got divorced. Which Steve says that wasn't true, but I feel like that is somewhat true. Maybe it's not Brenda's fault, but I do think Brenda had to do with a reason why the relationship ended, and maybe because the first wife had felt like she was third wheeling her own relationship and she realized that it wasn't for her. That would make sense to me, in my opinion. And Brenda starts to get emotional in the confessional because she feels like no one communicates with her, Jayden nor April. She keeps trying, but no one is trying on their end. She just feels unseen and unheard, and she wants to feel seen and heard. And I'm not saying people have the right to treat Brenda like trash or anybody trash, but also in Brenda's particular situation, people who won't communicate with her aren't necessarily obligated to communicate with her or have a relationship with her. Maybe April is, because I mean, she's dating your husband, for God's sake. Jayden, on the other hand, she doesn't have to be rude to you. She could be friendly, but she doesn't necessarily have to go out her way to have a relationship with you just because she's not seeing you that often, and then she's going to be turning 18 soon. So eventually, if she doesn't want to have a relationship with you, she won't. I think she stays friendly with you out of obligation because you're her dad's wife. I said April, on the other hand, is a little different. I think April does owe communication to her in a way, but then also that's not why April's in the relationship to be with Brenda. She's in the relationship to be with Steve, and Brenda just comes along with the relationship. April is just choosing to tolerate it. I'm not saying they have the right to treat Brenda like crap, but the circumstances that she's in, these people aren't necessarily required to have a relationship with her, but they should be nice to her and treat her like a human being. So I do get what she was saying, but I also get the other perspective. But they basically don't know what to do, which, like I said, they should already know what to do, and I think it's obvious, but they just don't care how it affects other people around them besides themselves. But they say they're going to try to keep the kids involved, and then soon they realize that it's normal and that it's okay, but I think that's just going to push Jayden further away, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, it's just about Steve wanting to have sex with as many women as possible and getting rid of his wife without divorcing her. Lastly, we went to Sidney and Tasha. Sidney and Tasha go on a date, and they end up talking about a couple of different things, and the first thing they end up talking about is Filipino culture. And they talk about how Sidney has done this research on the culture and how like the men kind of go out and work and the women kind of stay home and like obey the men. And Ariel doesn't necessarily agree with that. She's just an independent person and doesn't necessarily fall into those circumstances, but she did agree that's how a lot of the households are. And Sidney brings up a difficult topic of one of his kids being transgender, and is Ariel okay with that? She is accepting of that, and she says she is accepting of transgender people and all of that, and she doesn't really care and she supports it, which I'm glad Sidney and I brought that up as early as he did, because that's pretty important. I don't think that's something you should keep a secret away from somebody when it comes to your children, because that could put your children in harm's way and make them have unnecessary trauma that they do not need because of their dad, their girlfriend, or whatever the situation is, just in general. That's very unnecessary, and I do think if you're gonna go out and date, you need to have a partner who supports your kids, because I mean, obviously they have to get along with your kids to some extent and support them if they're gonna be around you. But back to the scene, the date ends well and they decide to go back to the Airbnb, and Sidney is hoping that him and Ariel have sex. Like all these men talk about is sex. Like, please get a grip on whatever you need to get a grip on, because this has just became too much. Yeah, that was the end of the episode. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. I give this episode a 8 out of 10. It was a good episode, but the next episode looks really interesting, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you want, and bye.